Howdy, folks. Well, we're worn out after doing 2 shows last night. I don't know how the hell we can do another one today, but we are, and we welcome Joe Yerdon to the show. Joe,
good to be back.
And we will talk about the expansion draft and how bad ESPN's coverage was and how Chris Fowler doesn't know the difference between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Carolina Panthers. But before that, we will start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So I have to ask the big question with the Olympics starting up. A, have you watched any of the pre-trials? Anybody raise your hand? I watched like 5 minutes of one racing event.
Only by accident. I flipped on NBCSN. It was on, and I quickly turned it off.
And B, are you really going to watch? Like, it's interesting because there was somebody who called into a local Philly station yesterday from Japan, and they said, with Toyota backing out, Panasonic backing out, only 18% of the population vaccinated, nobody's paying attention to the Olympics there if you're there. They don't even have commercials for the Olympics. This is the host country. They don't even have commercials. So basically, the Olympics are being shown for the U.S.
Yes.
For NBC. And so my bigger question is, what happens to the Olympics after this? Because even this is the 2020 Olympics. Even the title is flawed. Everything is flawed about these Olympics to start. Everything.
Listen, Euro 20 again. The soccer tournament was the 2020 Euro tournament.
I was going to ask about that, Anthony, because I kept putting hashtag Euro 2021, and then it was Euro 2020.
No, it's 2020. It was because that was when it was.
You're in the wrong year,
schedule.
Thank you. I'm still looking at my 2020 calendar, wondering what the hell.
Don't worry, the Leafs haven't lost yet. That hasn't happened yet.
No, but honestly, I sent you guys a link to the NBC's. They had tweeted out like a commercial, and they had like Katie Ledecky and a couple other of the Olympians, and there was one Olympian who was like threw out water, like there was like a, and I'm like, boy, that's a good analogy, like for spreading COVID all over the place. It's just, I don't know. I mean,
I'll tell you, in the past, things that have saved the Olympics were people having nothing better to do, HD TV, and now it's the exact opposite. We all have a lot to do. There's a lot of choices to watch. HDTV is not new anymore. So what is going to get us to watch?
I think once we get into, again, we're in what we're doing right now, Russ. We're extreme, obviously, with us, with hockey and everything. This is unusual for us to be this busy at this time of year. We're usually getting ready for we're looking for anything to do at this point of the summer, because for the most part, the market has already begun to settle, and things in our focus might shift to the Olympics in that circumstance. This time, go
ahead, Anthony.
I haven't even written about it for my own website.
No, and I think once the competitions might begin, I think we might get a bit more of engagement at that point.
Okay.
But it's not going to be what it would be in a normal year, for sure, in this circumstance where we normally would get it. But again, they went full steam ahead with this thing. I was very much, I get it from the athletes' perspective that they want, especially for the older athletes who they made this maybe their one last window here to compete at this level. So from the athlete's perspective, I completely have empathy. But from a pure just money grab standpoint, from the organizers, we know where this is at.
I'm just going to bring this up for troll purposes. If this is an accurate quote.
That is an accurate quote for me last night.
I'm sure that's as I like to say, Russell, that is a you problem.
Good job, Anthony. That is real.
And Russ and I
knew it was real the minute he saw it.
Russ and I talked when it was when the Yankees bullpen blew a 5-2 lead, and it was 5-5. And Russ was
you know how I feel all the time watching the Phillies tightrope.
and unfortunately, Russ, because I had such a long day yesterday, I fell asleep in the top of the 10th and didn't realize until I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning that the Yankees had won. So I'm glad that you're happy, but it's just the Yankees bullpen has been ravaged by COVID, but they've
also like the 2008 World Series again, or 2009. Sorry, it was like the 2009 World Series again. Like, who do I root for here? Like, it's
but the role
it's a true Russell problem.
The role of Hideki Matsui is played by Ryan Lamar. Okay, all right, let's start the show. Yes, I know that's a tough one, isn't it, Joe?
No, Matsui is one of my favorites of all time. So I
can't get mad at Matsui. I actually like Matsui. It's just, he kind of
completely likable dude, but I get it if you're a Phillies fan.
Now we're trying to go back to back.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, July 22nd, 2021.
I'm Anthony Mingioni from Off the Post Radio.
Russ Cohen from Off the Post Radio, too.
And I'm Michael Agello from Off the Post Radio, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. The only one who isn't from Off the Post Radio, although he has been a guest more than a few times, is Joe Yurden, who we welcome to the show. Okay, we'll just to mention this because Larry Brooks just tweeted this out, and I know that Russ will be heartbroken to hear this news. The Rangers are moving on from Brendan Smith.
Like, that was one of the bad contracts. The 10 seconds after it happened, I was like, you had this much of a window in the playoffs to like his game, and you paid him handsomely for that. And then for the next, 3-4 years, they made him a forward. They tried to figure out a role for him on defense. And then finally, he's the physical defenseman we throw out there when we want to hip check some guys. Like, he's okay, right? Like, he is okay as your 6. If you put Brendan Smith as a 6 for $1 million, fine.
Yeah. And he's the guy you send out to fight Tom Wilson because you got nobody else on the roster to do it.
Yeah, he's no longer – he's way past being that guy that was drafted and way past being that guy you expect any offense from. But he can play in the league in that role.
He sounds like an Edmonton Oilers defenseman, doesn't he, Michael?
Yes. Well, they're going to need to sign him for $1 million.
Right there.
Based on what they're talking about doing, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. I want to start with the expansion draft because Joe was not on the expansion draft buzzcast last night, so I want to get his feelings on it and the composition at this point of the Seattle Kraken. I think the general consensus was, they got some good goaltenders at a relatively reasonable price. Their defense is big, but they can't score. Joe, what do you think?
No. It reminds me a bit of some of these Sabres teams that I've watched in the last few years, where you could piece something together sort of feasibly, but they just don't have anybody to fill the net. You're relying as they sit right now, you're relying on Yanni Gourde and Jordan Eberle to try to carry the load offensively, and then maybe grit your way to a lot more goals. But this sure seems like Ron Francis, again, as of this moment, is trying to really slow play this a little bit and be patient with things instead of committing to the pressure that Vegas may have put on them by running out of the gates immediately. So if he uses some of these guys to accumulate picks, like it sounds like he's going to do with Tyler Pitlick, at least, if he's going to pull in more picks in the draft and just start building up the organization that way, not the worst way to go about it. It's
actually a good way.
Fans in Seattle got to be patient. That's all.
Right. It's a good way. I do think fans in Seattle will be patient, and it's the opposite of what Vegas did because they still don't have a good minor league thing going. They don't have a good system. And so if Seattle does do that and they start to build their system, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's a sad statistic, Russ. With the trade of Cody Glass, the Vegas Golden Knights traded all 3 of the first-round picks that they drafted in their first draft.
Yeah.
So that advantage of piling up those draft picks for all the moves that they made, they traded Glass, they traded Brandstrom, they traded Suzuki. They're all gone.
But I'm sure they feel like they traded up here because they got Glass was 6 and Patrick was 2, so they probably feel like, well, we got the other one who's.
But I mean, they also got Pacioretty for one of those deals. They got, I forget what they got in Stone.
The Mark Stone.
They got an MVP level player and a guy who can fill the net. So,
in 4 years, 3 to 4 years, they're going to be in trouble because they don't have.
Yeah, but that's why
system.
But that's why it sounds like they've made it sound now that like Peyton Krebs is off the table as far as when it comes to an Eichel situation,
He's lone remaining great prospect that they have.
Yeah, after all those moves, their number 1 center is Chandler Stevenson. So that just tells you. So
it makes sense why they sniff around Eichel. That's for sure. They need a center because they need somebody to distribute.
Yeah, because otherwise you're looking at Nolan. Otherwise, you're looking at Nolan Patrick as a 2C. And don't get me wrong, his profile, if he plays more engaged, could be that. He's not there yet.
but he's got to shake off the migraines and the other injuries and all that and try to get it behind him. Which, I mean, migraines, you can't just rehab a migraine. Like that's a bad thing.
He's been clear of it. But again, even before the migraines, he was. I mean, again, first year I thought he had his moments, Joe, but he plays far more at the periphery than I would have expected a player of his side. But again, it's just the transition going directly from junior to the NHL.
And there was one other thing that kind of got me this year about Patrick. We were happy that he was healthy. He was skating well. He really tried to be too fancy on so many shifts where he would have just kept it basic. He would have had more points, but he would just, he's trying to, do the between the leg stuff. He's trying to do these drop passes for guys that aren't there. Those kinds of things. He's got to just forget about those things.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Shadow.
Yeah. I know this is where we're at right now. Like only clean T-shirt I could find. Lucy on Margate. There you go.
Nice.
My Lucy birthday. Happy birthday, Lucy and Margate. For those of you who don't know it, look it up.
I've been next
You've been to Lucy, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And 140 years old. And and the hat, because showering is optional this time of year. There you have it.
Just because I wear a hat doesn't mean I don't shower.
Pierre LeBrun is confirming the Mike Smith deal, $2.2 million AAV for a 2-year deal for 39-year-old Mike Smith.
Okay, as a backup, I think it's solid. It's if he's their starter, it's a problem. But if he's a backup,
what's the percent chance?
The backup.
Sorry, what's the percent chance he's the backup?
75.
No,
you think it's that high?
No.
Yeah, they're getting another goalie. They're getting another goalie to start this.
I thought you meant if he's a starter.
No, you see, you jumped the buzzer. You jumped the buzzer on like Family Feud, and now you get a big X. Thanks,
no, he's not going to be the starter, guys. He's not going to be.
I hope so, for their sakes. But okay, let's start with this because it's been buzzing.
Well, Edmonton's a good place to start. We should start
right.
There.
It's been buzzing all morning.
What's happening there?
Yeah, it's been buzzing all morning. We don't have any confirmation. I just got off the conference call with Kyle Dubas. Kyle Dubas has not talked to Todd Reynolds, who's the agent for Zach Hyman, as of yet. So all the speculation out there about a 7-year deal or a sign and trade, an 8-year deal hasn't happened yet, but there's too much chatter out there to think that there's not any substance behind it. So
there's a lot behind this. I mean, depending who you talk to, this is done. It's just a matter of whether or not they make a trade or not. Like it's whether or not they do the 7 or 8 years. Like I think it's done. Now the only thing I will say, Mike, and we talked about this a little bit on our chat today, is does Toronto
no.
And you're saying no, and
no,
I think that's fine.
And that's
but at the end of the day, like I repeat, like how do they replace him?
Foligno. I think that's that. I think it's Mike Foligno in this case. I mean, to me,
or Nick Foligno.
Nick Foligno. Excuse me. I said Mike. My God,
I was like,
Mike's coming out of retirement. Let's go.
You can both. You could cover. You cover at both ends. It's just
I want Nick Foligno and Mike Foligno's helmet. Like, I want Mike Foligno's helmet on Nick Foligno. That's what I want to see. I want to see the good old helmet.
I don't know if it would fit him.
Mike Foligno's helmet was amazing.
It's like a soup bowl.
That was my Fowler moment of the day. You happy, Mike?
Yeah. Okay.
If that's yours, I've had 15 like that since we started.
No, but this and Russ and I discussed this before the show. Can they replace what Hyman does? Maybe, maybe not. If they can't, then they're going to have to go a different direction, and maybe they go with a more skilled player playing with Matthews and Marner. I think they need somebody to dig the puck out to get it to them, and that's what Hyman did and did exceedingly well. And like I said, I don't begrudge Zach Hyman going out with the best deal that he can. This is what I learned. I mean, from the reporting out there, it's either a 7-year deal at 5.5 or an 8-year deal at around 5. So that's around $40 million in the general neighborhood of $40 million. The Leafs were prepared to go the 8 years if he was getting a 6-year deal for like, say, 35, 36 million, because they could have spread out the AAV over 8 years and it'd be a 4.5 or some kind of cap hit like that. But the cap hit If Edmonton's willing to go to 8 years at $5 million, at $40 million, they can't do that because then they'd be investing $45 million on 5 forwards. They're spending too much money on 4 forwards as it is. So that makes no sense for Toronto.
But can we talk about what forwards we're spending money on? Like, that's the question I think that you have to ask. But anyway, listen, at the end of the day, this is Hyman has earned this ability to do this. I mean, I think in the press conference, from what I understand, I didn't hear it, but I heard about it, that Dubas said, he's earned this right to do this, which is cool of Dubas to come out and say. I agree.
He has put in all the work from being basically a role player to being a top 6 left winger who's averaged 20 goals. Had 21 goals the previous 2 seasons, and last year, if you prorate it out to 82, it was almost a 30-goal season. So he deserves this. If he can get it, God bless him. I'm very happy for him. He's a good guy. He's a great teammate. But the problem is, he's a 29-year-old workman-like forward who's blocked a lot of shots, who's gone into a lot of corners. He's had 2 major knee injuries. They talk about age curve with analytics teams. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that you bet against on the age curve because, by 33, 34, he could lose a step and he's not going to be anywhere close to being the player he is now.
Yeah, this has a lot of feel like the David Clarkson contract where, where he had those great seasons in New Jersey and Toronto's like, let's get him in here. We need a guy like that. They slapped the Wendell Clark label on him and everything. And then, things went sideways in that preseason game against Buffalo where he comes off the bench to fight John Scott. So like from that point on, it was just, fait accompli that it was just not going to work out. In this situation, though, I see Hyman as with a normal contract. I think that's a great pickup for Edmonton because I think he makes a ton of sense there. But 8 years, no way, man. Like even 6 years, I think is too long. But he's going to cash in if somebody's going to pay him that kind of money. Great. Right. But I mean, I think this is the hype that gets developed from guys that play well in Toronto. If they go to free agency, suddenly it seems to be, I don't know if it's the way it is, but it seems to be the Canadian teams seem to like jump on that hype train really fast. Because I mean, they're seeing Toronto every Saturday on Hockey Night in Canada, and they're just like, hey, these guys, this guy might be pretty good. We should get a guy like that. Well, screw it. Let's just get that guy and we'll pay him a lot of money.
I look at it this way. I look at it like my comparable is the Andrew Ladd deal. That's the one that struck me as when I heard it. I think it could work out for a little while. I think the pressure of keeping Connor McDavid there is part of it. The pressure on Holland to try and get further in the playoffs based on what you were left with and what you have now is part of it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody other than Katz is looking 3 or 4 years down the road in that organization. Because in 3 or 4 years, if it doesn't work out, Connor McDavid won't be there.
They're not at the point where they can. I mean, they can't look more than 3. I mean, they have had that time has come and gone. Like the time when they could have rebuilt, when they could have taken their time, those years are gone. I mean, they're not there anymore.
But Russ, you're exactly right. This is a deal with a 3 to 4 year window. He's going to be good in those 3 to 4 years. But the thing is, this area is not where they've needed to address. Now with the loss of Larson and Klefbom, they should be allocating more resources towards their defense. They don't have enough, even adding a veteran Duncan Keith. And if Mike Smith is their starter, then God help every Oilers fan because it's a disaster.
Listen, I'm sure Dave Tippett's clicking his heels. He loves players like that for good reason. But I do think we are now in an area where, we saw the expansion draft. We see what's happening now. Now the gritty, big, tougher player. Now, Hyman's not the bigger, but he's the tougher and grittier one. All those guys are going to get more money than they've ever dreamed of because a lot of GMs in this league, probably 70% of them think that's the way to win. And based on that, they're going to get paid that way.
So this is not all Edmonton's doing, though. So that's the other. So a lot of this, it's not surprising from the rumor perspective of this whole thing, that the team we're hearing the most about today is Edmonton because of the shocking Adam Larson stuff that went down yesterday, and Edmonton having to change the story as fast as humanly possible away from the fact that they lost Larson for nothing. I mean that is a big deal and a huge problem for them, and they have to get other things out there today. So Smith signing that was probably already going to get done, but the Hyman thing now, you're now also hearing they're closing in on Barry, Tyson Barry, resigning him. The Leafs might be
that's
competing.
such a mistake.
The Leafs might actually be competing with Hyman for Tyson Barry.
No, not a chance in hell.
Oh, that would be great.
No,
I would say there is a chance in hell, Mike, but I don't know that's going to happen. But they definitely have talked.
There's a lot of room in hell, Mike.
I mean, they haven't talked to him yet because they can't officially talk to him.
I've reserved place.
And if there's not enough room, well, it's hell. They can burn it out. They can burn in more room.
I just rented an Airbnb in hell. There you go.
Oh man, I know. I see, but they have to find a defenseman.
How about one that can play defense?
Well, they've also talked to Buffalo about Ristolainen.
Okay,
that's out there too.
Barry.
The Flyers, as we've talked about many times, have a little mild obsession with Ristolainen. That they have been trying to get him every possible time they could have gotten him.
Mm-hmm.
They're still definitely. I mean,
and that goes all the way back to draft year. I think they would have taken if he had been in their spot, they would have taken him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to talk Ristolainen for a second with you, Joe, and also transfer him into a little bit of Eichel stuff that I'm hearing today.
Sure.
And I may have to jump at any moment here as I'm getting different stuff because it is 1 o'clock. But what are your thoughts on Ristolainen here?
He's a guy. Well, I could talk a long time about Ristolainen, honestly.
Yeah.
Because he was a guy that, I mean, with all the hype, I mean, you said going back to the draft year, Philly loved him, and for good reason. He's a big kid, strong player. I mean, he's a lot stronger than he was when he was younger. But I mean, the way he is now, he's a solid power play contributor. You don't want him quarterbacking it, but if you've got him as your secondary option on the first power play unit or leading your second unit, that's pretty good because he's going to get you points. He's going to find ways to get the shot through.
But don't put him in front of the net on the power play, Joe. That was a disaster. I saw that enough times.
I wouldn't say it's a disaster, but I don't think that's where he's best. I think he's best out high.
Right.
But I mean, his whole angle for his career got screwed basically by being 19 years old and playing 20 minutes a night on one of the worst teams in recent history. And he learned bad habits, and those habits haven't really totally gone away yet. And that's where a lot of the defensive issues come in. I mean, defensively for Edmonton, he would be a huge upgrade. And on Philadelphia, he wouldn't necessarily have to play in those top 4 minutes, those top 4 pairing minutes. So if you've got him lower in your lineup and you don't need to rely on him, I think he can be a lot more useful. The problems arise though when he's playing over 20 minutes and he's counted on to be a defensive lockdown guy, because that's not what he is. That's
not what he is.
I mean, if he gets in there and grinds people up and hits people, cool. But
that is part of my issue with the Flyers being so interested in him, because the Flyers' real need to me is lockdown. That's really where this is a team I think that has given up more goals when the other team pulls their goalie than any other in the last 5 years.
Well, this will lead into the Eichel discussion, because I was at the media availability this morning for Kevin Adams. He didn't want to go into the trade talks and chatter out there. He was concentrating mostly on the draft. And of course, then he didn't want to talk about who he was going to take first overall. But in talking to some other media members, the general consensus is that a Ristolainen deal will be the deal that gets done first. It's probably the simplest of the three deals. But the Eichel deal is becoming more and more complex as it goes along. And I don't know whether that is because of the medical situation, whether because there's 6 or 7 or 8 teams involved in bidding, but Buffalo seems fairly intransigent in terms of the price that they want for him. And if they don't get it, then they're just saying, we're going to keep him.
Yeah. We've got a little breaking news going on. 2 little things quickly. LeBron's reporting, and I had heard about this morning.
It's also confirmed by it has been confirmed also by Elliot Friedman that Carolina's trading Alexander Nedeljkovic to Detroit for Jonathan Bernier and a 3rd-round pick. Remember, Bernier is a pending UFA.
What a shell game they've done with
what? Okay, again, Thomas
What a shell game.
Cheapest billionaire on the friggin' planet.
Does Mrazek have pictures of somebody?
No, but here's the thing. Even I was just on Charlotte television, right? And they love him there.
They do love him there, but
he won a Calder Cup there. They built him up. Now we saw that he got put on waivers, and Waddell kind of tried to hide that by saying, "Well, what was the excuse, Mike?
What's that?
Putting the Jelkovic on waivers. What did he say the excuse was?"
I think they just said they didn't think that anybody would claim him. They didn't.
So they put him on waivers. Then he goes on this run. Everybody thinks he's their guy now, and they trade that guy.
Well, Russ, last week the talk was, well, they're not going to qualify him, or they're not going to, they'll qualify. He's an arbitration eligible RFA, that if he gets awarded, say, $4 million, that they'll walk away. I mean, are you? And
I think he's a Michigan guy, and they've been looking for a goalie in Detroit, a long-term goalie, and this fell in their lap. I mean,
I heard this on the air. Eddie Olczyk was on Toronto radio a couple days ago, and I think it's applicable to this situation because it's related to Carolina and goaltending. According to Olczyk, Carolina, just before the deadline, had a deal in place, not locked in completely, but in place to acquire John Gibson from Anaheim. Didn't specify who Carolina was giving up, and he said at the 11th hour, Carolina pulled out of it. Now, again, Gibson is a substantial cap hit, 5'8", something like that, for a number of years. I'm sorry. If I'm Carolina fans, I am pissed off at my ownership group because every time they're going to let Dougie Hamilton walk away. Then now they have a goaltender who actually got them past one round, who was a Calder nominee, and they trade him for Jonathan Bernier, who's at best a good veteran backup. This team doesn't know what it takes to win, and the way that they operate proves it.
I have something else to report to you guys, and I tweeted you guys, I texted you guys this earlier that I couldn't confirm it yet because I had to get a couple other names. I wanted to get a second name on this one because not a guy you want to get pissed off at you, as we've seen in the past. But I can confirm that Jake Voracek has indeed asked the Flyers for a trade, and that this is where this has gotten to right now. Obviously, Voracek's frustrated with everything that's gone on. Not that this changes much. Not that the Flyers weren't trying already to trade him.
Trade out of it. Otherwise, he's still going to be playing.
Yeah, I mean, right. Exactly.
Well, once it's known and it's out there.
Voracek's not the kind of guy who will not show up for camp and not play. But he has officially asked for a trade, which I think can further enhance a couple things here. Along the lines of maybe a Tarasenko for Voracek swap. That could be something that happens. Go ahead.
Craig Morgan and another reporter, I don't know, John Gambadoro.
Yeah, that's too good. Yeah, that's lit. Those are obviously more and Gambadoro. Yep.
That the Coyotes are on the verge of acquiring Shane Gostisbehere from the Flyers. Doesn't say what the package is, just that Gostisbehere would be going to Arizona. So
we'll see.
Now
there are a couple teams that were talking to them this morning about Gostisbehere. When I got the Voracek news, I got this too, but it didn't seem like it was going anywhere.
But let me
LA and Arizona were talking this morning too.
Let me just finish destroying Carolina.
No, hold on. Let's comment one thing on this Gostisbehere, then we'll go back to Carolina.
Okay.
I can't imagine that Philly doesn't have to eat some salary here because I don't think Arizona has a $4 million player to send back.
Unless it's a Connor Garland type of deal.
Yeah, unless
it's texted that LA and Winnipeg also had talks with Flyers about.
I was going to say this could be a Connor Garland thing or a Christian Dvorak thing as well.
It could be a Christian Dvorak thing.
Yeah, they're not going to move Garland, I was told.
But they're going to make the salaries match. They're taking on a lot of salary in Arizona.
They're not going to move them, but they're not going to pay him either. Make up your mind.
No. At some point they'll have to pay him, but I mean they don't have to. They don't have to pay him yet, so they're not.
Right.
They're not. This is a team that's not a team that has to sit there and and worry about that right now. In their mind, they have so many issues. But Garland is one of the few things that they can sell tickets. One of the few guys they can sell tickets behind. They have to keep him in there. He's exciting enough that they want to keep him there for sure.
But okay, so
back to Carolina.
So this may take a little bit of the heat off of Detroit, Russ, in terms of Wallstat in the draft, because now they have a goaltender.
Yeah, that might change things now.
Right, now they have not that he's a now goaltender, but he's 25.
No, he'd be 3 years down the line at best.
Right. So, but here again, now you have James Reimer, UFA, Peter Mrazek, UFA. Your goaltender is Jonathan Bernier, who I think has a year left at $3 million. So if he's your starter, yeah, you're going far.
We don't know if he's the starter. We're going to assume he's the starter. Maybe they'll go an exact tandem and get someone like Halak. They could do that. But in the end, though, it's just the thing that I think is distressing is like what you had said, Mike. If I'm a fan of that team, I don't know from year to year who they're keeping and who they aren't. Like even, Svechnikov has to get this long-term deal too. Like again, I haven't even heard that it's close. And he turned it down last year.
So LeBron is also confirming this, the Gostisbehere deal as well. It says Flyers getting cap relief. So my assumption here is that
they're going to eat it all.
This may be a case where Gambadoro says Gostisbehere, offensive defenseman. It's just kind of what Gambadoro stated earlier. But I'm thinking potentially here that this will be picks. This may be picks.
All right,
13 pick and something else.
Well, remember,
something else here coming out.
13th pick.
The fifth, whatever their number is, 14, 13, whatever their number is.
Trading Gostisbehere, the pick. No, I'm talking about in return for Gostisbehere.
Arizona had only 3 defensemen who played in the NHL under contract: Lyubushkin, Ekman Larson, and Chychrun. Everybody else, Soderstrom was in the minors for most of the year. He's going to be on the NHL roster, but they had no defensemen. Goligoski, Demers, Yarmulson were all UFA. So
here's what I was going to say, though. I'm saying the Flyers will have to give up this year's first and probably next year's second. That's probably what they're going to have to give up.
Separate. You're not talking about included in this deal. You're talking about
in this deal to get them to take that salary.
And they
don't have a first round pick. This is how they get a first round pick.
Here's the big thing with Gostisbehere.
I got something here. 1 second. I heard the Devils are actually closing in on a possible deal with the Blues regarding Tarasenko. That the Blues would retain half the salary on this deal, which is pretty enormous. It's not done, but it is reached apparently like stage 3 of their talks. Where they've gotten past certain things, and I still don't know who exactly is going the other way, but. If the Blues are at the point of retaining half salary, that does change things a lot for the Tarasenko negotiations for teams.
Do we for just on a general? Do we know whether signing bonuses with deals are due on July? Still on July 1st, or were they due the beginning of the season, which is July 28th?
I don't know.
The way I understand it is they already had to have been paid.
Okay, so. That is why Gostisbehere is something that Arizona, because Gostisbehere.
Oh, he has a lot of signing bonus.
$4.5 million cap hit. The money for the last 2 years is 3.25, and 2.25 was paid in signing bonus. So he's $1 million this year at a $4.5 million cap, which for a financially strapped organization like Arizona makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so there's value there. It looks like Saravalli's saying that. Ned Jokovic asked for $3.5 million for Carolina. The best way to get out of Carolina is to try and get paid what you're worth.
Right, right.
True. Yeah. Right.
That's best way to get out of Carolina is to ask for money.
Yeah. Right.
And by the way, Mike, Bernier UFA this summer, so they've only got a few days to re-sign him if they want to. So yeah.
They really just got rid of Ned Jokovic because they couldn't sign him.
That's right, because Bernier was somebody that was being shopped at the deadline as a rental.
Yeah, because Ned Jokovic was like something. It was like I don't know what the letter was, but it was like a Group Y.
No, it was Group 6.
Group 6, yeah, it was something.
Group 6. He had to play a certain amount of games to not be a UFA. And I think he passed it by 2 games at the end of the year. If they didn't want him, they should have just let him walk.
Right.
And Elliott reporting the Gostisbehere return is a 2022 second and a 7th round pick.
Well, that's not
without
bad.
the cap relief thing, that makes sense. Actually,
I mean, getting a 2022 second round pick.
It's pretty good.
That's
Yeah,
good.
Pretty good.
And again, that's that. Yes. Again, we all discussed how important cap space is. It's the most important acquisition you could probably make this summer. So if Arizona's taking on the 4.5, that deal makes absolute
that was
in this regard.
that deal.
now it makes sense.
That deal's a help for both teams. It's a help
It
for
is.
Yeah.
the cap space and a help for Arizona to occupy 4.5 in cap for $1 million this year. So it's good for both.
Yeah, that's
now
that's
and
good
also
for
confirming
both.
the Red Wings deal.
I'm assuming the Red Wings will pay Ned Jelkovic, and that's smart for the Red Wings.
Yeah, they have very little cap space, right, Russ?
Yeah, they don't have much.
Like 40 million.
I mean, I get so disheartened with Carolina because they could be a cup team, and they let the finances get in the way of being a cup team. I get it's a business, but this is why we always hear from billionaire owners that say you really can't run it like a business because if you want to win, there are some things you have to do that you would never do in business to win, and some of that means spend some money that you didn't expect to spend.
Well, this is the difference, Russ, between billionaire owners and multimillionaire owners.
Yes.
And that is why the NHL, obviously prefers the billionaire owners, because the multimillionaire owners have to make these kind of calls, and they're more worried about the day to day. When really,
correct,
if you're going to own a professional sports franchise, it's really about what you paid for it and what you sell it for.
Well, here's the interesting thing based on where Carolina has been rumored in the past. Now, I mentioned the Gibson thing. I don't know if they revisit that. Who knows? But in the past, there have been a lot of connections between Carolina and Freddie Anderson. Carolina drafted Freddie Anderson a long time ago, then didn't sign him. He was redrafted by Anaheim and then got traded to the Leafs. But there have been, last year when there was talk about them trading Freddie Anderson, Carolina was the most commonly heard destination for him. The other
more information here that Jesper Boquist would go to St. Louis in this deal from the Devils, along with a draft pick. But St. Louis wants the number 29 draft pick. I guess the 29th pick.
They want a number one for a guy who's had 4 shoulder surgeries.
Yeah, and Jesper Boquist.
He's got some potential. He really hasn't clicked yet. But there are some tools there. He's fast.
Adam Boquist.
You also understand that if they're retaining half their salary, that changes things, So that's like a big.
He could be a useful player if he plays with the right kind of player and the right kind of system. Because for some reason he just hasn't clicked in New Jersey. But I do feel like there's talent there. There always has been. So
yeah.
And we just to finish off on the Carolina thing, Robin Lehner was tied to Carolina when he was traded from Chicago to Vegas, and there has been talk out there about Lehner being moved out. Now, I don't know if that means that because Fleury, they need a backup who can play significant games to spell Fleury. So I don't know. I mean, they have to have a goaltender somewhere. I don't know.
Sorry,
I think just getting back to Goss's, again, considering they had him on waivers, I think that's a pretty, especially a second round pick in return.
No, it's
good. Full cap off. I think it's definitely a good pick. Now that 7th round pick is originally a St. Louis Blues pick, according to Friedman.
Yeah,
it was originally, but that's just the particulars on that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, we like him as a guy. We always have. He has a lot of talent. It's just now it's in his head. Maybe he gets out there with less pressure and he could reel the puck off and just start shooting a lot of shots, and maybe he gets 15 goals again. It got to the point where every time he was missing in important situations, everybody was just cringing. So he really is a guy that needed to change.
There is no question that I believe he's still going to have a career in the NHL. Like I really think that he's still a talented player, and I think we put him with other talented players. I mean, I go back, to his, obviously his young year, but the one thing that where I saw Gostisbehere at his best, I think, was in the World Cup of Hockey playing for that under 23 team when he was, working the power play with Morgan Riley and just on the point, and really just you saw that he could move, he could play at that speed that under 23 team from North American team could play at.
Nedeljkovic, Nedeljkovic has signed a 2-year contract with the Wings at $3 million per.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is this the Wings starter? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he's their starter.
But think about this. So you're telling me Carolina couldn't give him $3 million?
No. Nope.
Yeah,
For what
that's
I mean, he's I don't even. I'm done with it.
No, it's baffling. It is.
I'm just done with it. Seriously.
The guy was a Calder nominee, and you just basically you insult him by saying, "Oh, you're not worth."
Oh, hold on. We need to actually, for Elliot, just rephrase it here. Actually, the picks are going to Arizona as part of the deal.
That's the way I thought it was.
Yeah,
Well, that's the way I thought it was originally.
He just updated. Picks are going to Arizona.
that makes way more sense.
So Philadelphia is sending their two picks
considerations
along with
boy.
exactly. Yeah,
It's
so
still fine. They had to get cap space.
It's another Andrew Ladd deal.
That's pretty insane that they had to put a 2nd-round draft pick in there.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Check their overall picks for next year to see how many they have, though.
Still, though, that's nuts. That does tell you, though.
Well,
based on Fletcher's history, that Fletcher has something else coming, and and could that now one? And I'm going to circle this way back around again because I know we're all over the map today, guys. So thanks for paying attention. And there will be no test, and there's no point in trying to outline today's show, but back to Jack Eichel again.
Yeah, we've screened out too many different things until we got the right information.
Yeah,
There's no doubt
Jack
about that.
Eichel, who has been linked to the Flyers a little bit in the last couple days. Today, people saying that he's not, that the Flyers are backing off now that they've made the Ellis trade. I'm not convinced. Listen, it is like Comcast to go big like that and just say, we're okay if you go get the biggest guy out there, but trying to actually improve the team from within is not going to be allowed. So I could see them going after Eichel. I definitely could.
I'm going to give that one a 0% chance. That's just me.
agreed.
I don't think that's the place he's likely to end up, but I definitely think you have to consider them now. And even with this trade too, with opening up this cap space, it becomes a little bit more interesting.
Well, I think taking a phone call make you interested. Like that's really where we're at here. Like,
I was going to say, I think Philly could put together a package that gets them in the conversation, though. I think there's players that they can put in there.
Yeah,
that would certainly tickle the Sabres' interest. But
Fair.
I think given some of the other teams that are supposedly involved, especially Anaheim, I always keep pointing my finger at Anaheim. They're the one that can offer the best. They can offer the best deal.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I wasn't surprised the other day when Elliott had reported that Anaheim and LA and Calgary had circled themselves out, and I was like, I don't really think Anaheim's out of this.
Trade is now. By the way, trade is now official. The Flyers have just announced the trade.
Well, but one second. But Joe Elliott circled back on that this morning.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, so it's all part of it. I mean, it's what Elliott's even said. You don't believe what anybody's telling you. Everybody's lying at some point. It's all
right.
We are useful tools for for the GMs to get their.
Oh yeah, and yesterday we saw another story for another day, but like the unraveling of the players' agents. And the anger the players' agents had with the NHL and ESPN was just like, and I know that the NHL was spinning this like it was a good thing that everybody was talking about them all day. And Kevin talked about that too, but I can tell you that
didn't watch though. They didn't.
ESPN was pissed off, and players' agents were pissed off because player agents were putting out stuff off the record that was being released on the record. There was a lot of that going down yesterday.
Well, the solution is, as I said on the show yesterday, and what a couple other people said this morning, if you want not that there's going to be an expansion draft anytime soon, but if you do this, how about making the release an hour before the show and not 12 hours before, because it's time to get out.
Well, the reason they did that is obviously they're trying to keep they want to tell the players, right? They want to tell the players what's going on, so they have to give some time to tell the players. I think you're right, Mike. They could do it in a way to say, listen, if you're on an unprotected list, be on your phone between 7 and 8 o'clock tonight, because we're going to be we're going to be calling you possibly. And if we don't get in touch with you, you're going to hear your name matched on TV. That's what they needed to do. Something like that to just say this is how it goes.
Now, one last thing on the Gostisbehere trade, and attached to the Ladd trade. Andrew Ladd, $5.5 million the next 2 years. Gostisbehere, $4.5 million the next 2 years. for this year, $10 million in cap space, real money, $2 million.
Yeah.
There's your Arizona Coyotes for you.
That's the perfect Arizona deal.
Yeah, bargain basement budgeting for the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, but again, Philly needed cap space. I think that deal's fine. But the and so even from the, just to be fair to Mike Eck, even like Joe Morello said in the chat room, ESPN needs to step up their presentation game. I did go back and watch it. They've done better things. I'll say it that way. They've done better broadcasts.
I'm ripping on Chris Fowler. It was a innocent mistake. I get it, but I just thought there's enough blame to go around with everything yesterday. The way it was released, the lists at 10 a.m. and then the expansion draft at 10. There was absolutely none suspense at all. It wasn't like the NFL draft. It wasn't like any other draft. It was, everybody knew what player it was going to be. So really, we watched it because we're all hockey reporters.
It was good for the people there. It was good if you're not plugged into Twitter. But I have to agree that a lot of people didn't watch because I kept seeing and hearing, we're not watching now. We have everything. You don't need to watch.
Yeah, I felt better about going to the baseball game last night, knowing that I already knew, 29 out of 30 players.
Yeah. Joe went to the last Major League Baseball game probably ever to be played in Buffalo last night because
worth going.
And we move on.
Even though it's the Red Sox. Yeah.
Man.
And we move on from that.
Right. But yeah, this I don't know. I don't know if this was like the insiders flex day yesterday, just to be like, hey, ESPN's got the same deal. The thing is when they brought in Adrian Wojnarowski, they tried to keep him muzzled when it comes time for the draft because they know he's going to get every pick, 2 minutes before it's announced. Right. And I don't know, maybe the insiders, reporters are doing their jobs. That's the key part. Now, if the reporters are giving off the record information out, that's not good.
It doesn't happen a lot.
Right. But like those people, whatever reporters were doing that, they're not going to get those scoops anymore. At least not from those agents.
You have to keep your, that's the old phrase, you got to make sure to keep your gunpowder dry for other opportunities. If you're using everything in one shot, congratulations, you get that one big moment. And then after that, everything else opportunity dries up.
If the league wanted to, they could make like UFA Day very difficult on the insiders. They could have more rules in place. They could tell even agents until we get it at the home office and it's actually been recorded, you can't talk about it. You can't leak it. You can't do it. If they wanted to do something like that, they could do that and they could shut down the insiders for half of those shows.
Also, like you could cut off access to the registry for transactions too, because I think that's
lock up the registry. You make it a pin pad now,
or at the very least, they got to make it tight. They have to. I know there has to be a period of time. I know there's a process that's involved. Mm-hmm. I just think they need to be able to tighten the window. Even then, I'm not sure if it's going to work. Even then, I'm not sure
it doesn't work. Because at the end of the day, you can try those kind of things, but at the end of the day, we have freedom of the press. We have people that can talk to each other. You can't stop this stuff you can't stop people from trying to manipulate the press. I've said many times over and over again, I'm not getting a scoop unless me putting that scoop out benefits somebody. They're not going to give you something on the record unless
the league could make it harder. It has nothing to do with freedom of the press. It's their business. They could change rules to suit themselves.
I don't know that they could. What could they do? What could they do legally that
Well, I just said they could actually say.
You could tell people don't put it out there, and they do that. They do it. But they already say that kind of
stuff. They can start fining agents if they wanted to.
By penalty of
fine people. You can't fine agents for talking about it.
No. If you put in a process and just say hypothetically, okay, until it's recorded and until we have the transaction. Nobody could talk about it. Nobody could leak it. If they find out it's a leak, they can go back to that agent and say, listen, we put this rule out. Now this is the fine you're going to have to pay. If agents started to have to pay fines, they probably wouldn't be talking.
I can't see them going that far.
No, I can't either.
I think that would be
an impossible thing to
legal challenges. If I'm the agent, I'm not paying that fine because I'm going to legally challenge that all up and down because at the end of the day, you really just can't. You can't stop people from talking
I mean,
about
it
things.
hurt a broadcast that
not to talk about
spent
things.
a lot of money on. It hurt a broadcast. That's bad.
No,
That
but
is
it
the
comes down.
first
I mean,
broadcast for the sport on that channel in a long time, and it hurt their viewing. No question about it.
All right, but Russ, you're not that far off of the whole, like, remember years ago when Twitter first came out and there were college basketball games and they were telling people that you're not allowed to tweet what's happening in the game because you're not a rights holder or whatever. And then people were like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm in here, I can say whatever I want to say. You don't own me. I mean, that's the reality. The reality is, you can't stop people from saying, I mean, the agents don't work for the NHL. The agents don't, but
they are licensed by the NHL. They're NHL licensed agents, are they not? They are.
Yeah.
I don't know that they have to be officially licensed by the NHL or not.
They do. They're on the NHL website.
They're licensed by the PA.
Yeah, they're licensed by the PA. That's a totally different world.
But again, the PA and the NHL have to, work.
The PA is not going to do. I don't think that legally you could ever get there.
I'm not advocating it, but I'm saying what they did was, it hurt a show yesterday. They were doing their job, and it also hurt a show.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat said, "Well, the NHL produced it. That doesn't really matter. It
doesn't matter."
Yeah, I mean, it's not who produced it. It's it was ESPN. So employee.
It was their airtime,
and it was their airtime. And by the way, I don't know what hurt more, the release of the names or the fact that the lead-in for it was the X Games. I think that was probably a bad lead in there. And by the way, after it, there was the United Soccer League, which I didn't even know existed.
I didn't know
what else are you going to put on there.
Watching Tony Hawk shred that's I don't know, that's pretty cool.
Australian rules football. I mean, what else are we going to put on there? That's still my favorite thing. I
do love Aussie football.
We all got into it because it was the first thing ESPN had on like 24 hours a day when ESPN first came on.
That's right.
Like I'm going to give some free advice because God forbid somebody wanted to spend an extra dime on this. They could have done a half-hour lead-in with a hockey-related broadcast, documentary, 30 for 30, whatever they wanted to produce, something new that nobody's seen, so that I'm watching this and now I'll watch that too, because, it is like a little hockey block of time there that they had, and they really they parachuted in at exactly 8:00 and they parachuted out the minute it was over, but they could have elongated it if they wanted to.
Well, I think we got to get used to this because this is not NBC,
I know.
ESPN is going to be different this way. They look at it as it is. The NHL has to stand on its own. We're not gonna like prop it up from every direction like the NBC did. And you're going to see that, and ESPN's going to do more of that. I mean, I think what I am very much looking forward to is John Buccigross doing the draft. I think that's
why was he doing the thing yesterday?
I think because they wanted to wait and have him. They saw the draft as a bigger national story than Seattle. They saw Seattle as more of a local story. I think is how they thought about it.
Darren Drager's reporting that the final touches are being put on the Taylor Hall deal to Boston, 4 years, $24 million, $6 million per.
Well, Mike, if you read HockeyBuzz.com earlier, you would have seen. I read this too. I read that Taylor Hall is a 4-year deal with the Bruins, very close, just over $20 million. So
tell Darren Drager, call him on the carpet for stealing.
I will not call Darren Drager on anything. But anyway, that's not the way
honestly,
we play.
I would not pay Taylor Hall $6 million a year.
This is a tough one. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a tough. I agree.
The term is fine. I would not pay.
4 years is fine. Like I don't feel bad about that. But Krejci's deal's up. Like that. I mean, he's not going to get as much money if he gets re-signed.
All right. So here's a question for you, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
This year, who scores more points, Taylor Hall or David Krejci?
Is Krejci playing in Boston, or is he playing somewhere else?
He's playing in Boston.
Well, they're probably going to be line mates. So, as I say, one guy's going to be
line mates. Just they're on their own island. It's possible Krejci will outscore him. So is Krejci going to get $6 million? He's already been paid more than that in his life.
Krejci's 35, so he's not going to. He's already gotten his contract.
No, but points matter, right? So does that mean he shouldn't get another one? I'm just saying. I don't even know if Taylor Hall will get more points than David Krejci. I don't think he will.
I don't agree with that. I think Hall's a great fit for Boston, and for a 4-year contract. I mean, they're not doing max deal with him, so it's fine. So I mean, they're not going to get burned on the back end of it. If it's 4 years, that's
I think it's okay.
You can live with it.
I mean, I think it could mean Krejci's not coming back, though. It could mean that. I mean,
no, I think it means Krejci's going to come back at a much reduced rate than 7.25 because he's 35 years old and they can't afford that anymore. They got to pay Bergeron next year. His deal is up, and they have to pay.
But he had 44 points in 51 games. Taylor Hall's not even capable of that anymore. He's not.
Yeah,
but Krejci did.
Well, I mean, we got to see what happens with Taylor Hall here.
Hall. So now it's like every.
So
Russ, are you going to give Krejci a 4-year, $24 million contract?
Not a
He's been in motion for 3 years in weird situations. I mean, it would be nice to see Taylor Hall 4 years sign someplace where he can go and just be, and not. I think Taylor Hall has constantly been. He's very much a mental guy, and he's been playing games with himself, and he's been going back and forth, and he's like. He goes from New Jersey in a bad situation where he does incredibly well in New Jersey. Then he falls apart in New Jersey. Then he goes to Arizona where he just, they give up a lot for him. Then he goes to Buffalo, which is a disaster. Ending up in Boston where he does well again.
None of it's Taylor Hall's fault.
I know
he's had injuries too. So I mean,
it's not all his fault, but I think we need 4 solid years of Hall to in one place like Boston, a solid market where he can play and not have to be the everything there. I think that'll be good. I think that'll be good for them.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
Russ absolutely hates this.
I don't hate it, but I'm saying I have to give Krejci at least as much money as Taylor Hall because he's going to outscore Taylor Hall. I'm not going to give him 4 years, but I can't pay him less than Taylor Hall now.
But Russ, they're
that's insulting.
Russ, they're at 2 different spots in their carer.
Right.
Taylor Hall's what, 30? He's still in the prime of his career, and he's coming off, a stint where he scored 8 goals in 16 games for Boston. So he proved that the Buffalo thing was just a
small window. Did he prove it? Go back the year before. When's the last time Taylor Hall had a massive year?
The previous year, he was injured.
The year he won MVP.
Yeah.
How about that year?
Yeah. How many years ago is that, Joe?
What was that, 3?
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before that. That was his career year. That was the career apex of Taylor Hall right there. He will never match that MVP year again. So now you have to figure out what is he.
Krejci just came off a deal. I think it was 4 years where he's making 7.25. He's 35 years old.
Right.
He's been durable the last few years before he had some injury issues. But they're not going to pay him $7 million. They're not going to pay him. I think if he signs a deal with Boston. If I had to bet, I bet you it's a 2-year deal, like 4.5. And if it's anything more than that, then they're walking away from it.
Yeah, and maybe he'll be a good guy and do it. But I'm just saying, he could outscore Taylor Hall this year. Wouldn't shock me. And Taylor Hall hasn't really showed me that he's going to get back to like 60 points even.
Here you go. EJ Radick just reported this. Apparently, the Carolina Hurricanes offered Alex Nedeljkovic a 1-year deal at $1.5 million.
They didn't really like those 26 games that he played, I guess.
Honestly, Thomas Dundon, you are reprehensible. Really? It's insulting.
I got to do another call, guys. I got to run. Sorry.
We're almost done. Hearing
but that
call was about
go ahead.
Allmark in Buffalo. And
there's been some speculation that
hearing that it's pretty much done that he's coming back. I don't think big news, but I think it's an important one for them to get done.
Yes,
well, they have
they desperately need the goaltending.
Yes,
yeah,
they need to sign 2 of them unless Dustin Tokarski is going to be the backup.
Yeah. It sounds they're gonna have to get somebody else, but it sounds I'm still trying to get the details of it, but I mean it was a little bit I guess a little bit iffy there for a bit, right? Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, if as long as Buffalo gets the Allmark thing done, I think that's a big step for him. I'm honestly surprised he's not going to take a step into free agency. Although I imagine some of the injuries last year might have kept the offers down, and he's had injuries throughout his career. So I mean, it's the right thing for Buffalo to do. And Allmark's a good goalie. don't mistake that. Like I mean, he won all their games last year, which I know isn't a lot, but he was the guy that mattered. So, but the key for them is they got to find somebody who could be the 1B. It's not necessarily looking for a backup. It's somebody who can split the time, just because you can't rely on him to be able to be healthy for the entire season. So if they run short, and if they're counting on Luukkonen to be the backup this year, I think that's a bad idea, because you're running him out there against competition he may not be totally ready for. Let him finally get a full year in Rochester to grow, and then go from there. But keep that second seat warm for somebody who can be his equal and push him, honestly.
Yeah, that would be nice. It absolutely what they need to do, and I think that, with Granato there, you could get a really good, healthy situation going where he play, where he picks the right spots for him to help him grow.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what you need. That's what you need to do. Coaches are really important in the development of young goalies. When it comes to picking the perfect spots for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's what you're going to really need. That's going to be. I was looking. Okay. Well, I guess we're just about. The other thing I want to talk about Eichel real quick is. Mm-hmm. What I've been hearing regarding the Rangers and Eichel, and a lot of people have been talking about this too, but it does sound like the Rangers have, if the Sabres are asking for 3 or 4 parts, the Rangers have 2 or 3 of those parts together. And basically they're trying to get the last part, which appears to be a draft pick, higher up than the Rangers have. And that's what I keep hearing. They're trying to move up in the draft. The Rangers are trying to move up in the draft so they can get Eichel by moving that draft pick to Buffalo. They have the prospect, they have the player, but they don't have a good enough draft pick. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to make a move for that.
Yeah, I think Buffalo's the main thing for them is to get another pick in the top 10 this year. I think that's a must do. And honestly, if they get the trade done with Anaheim, number 3 pick should be the linchpin on that. Like that's automatic. If Anaheim doesn't come with that, then just shut your phone off to them, block Bob Murray's number, and say, unless you're bringing number 3 to the table, don't bother calling.
There's been so much chatter about William Eklund. I mean, that's the guy that they like on top of Power, and that's the reason they want to get a second pick. So I don't know how far Eklund falls in the in the first round. I would think that he doesn't fall out of maybe the top 7 or 8. So they would have to pick in that range to be able to get him. So
I think Eklund would be a guy I would consider strong if I wasn't hard pressed on Power, and I mean he's the only guy who seems to be unanimous. But Eklund would be a guy I would push hard to go high, just based on what he's done in Sweden this past year. I mean, he was better than Raymond. He was better than Holtz, his teammate. Like he had put up more points than both of those guys, and they're older. So. That's really impressive to me to have a kid that age do that well in the Swedish league.
Yeah, and apparently like just a great playmaker, a great really sneaky player, obvious skill. Yeah, he seems like,
and he looks good wearing hats too.
He seems like I raised him right. He seems like he's got his head on his shoulders, and he's got an ability to be better, like some people. I'm not saying he's Elias Pettersson, but it's like it feels like that he is looked upon right now, like Pettersson was sort of looked upon in his draft, where he's we all think he's really good, but is he now Elias Pettersson is a superstar? So the question is, or I think he's a superstar. We'll see where he goes. We'll see where he goes next year, I guess. But I think he's among the best in the NHL. So.
But yeah, I think if they end up getting that pick from Anaheim, I think 1 is Power, 3 is going to be Eklund. I think that's the way it'll go. I mean, they like Kent Johnson, but I think you can get him later. Later in that, if you end up getting the number 10 pick or something like that, then I think you can get him there. And if Ben, for some reason Seattle doesn't take Beniers and Buffalo gets the 3, then I think they got a real toss up. That's when I think Beniers would overrule them on Eklund, but I'm not totally sure on that.
Yeah, I mean, you want to put the 2 college teammates together, I guess. Is there anything to that? I mean, I don't, it's a big question. I don't put as much stock into that as people do, especially when they've only played a year together.
Yeah,
is that true? I mean, it's not like these guys.
And Michigan's going to be the odds-on favorite to win the national championship this year. At least they should be. I mean,
they're going to have
3 top 10 picks this year. Like they should be.
3 top, maybe as many as 5 in the first round. I've heard it's an insane year for them. All right. I think that's all the time we have for today, guys. But thanks so much for joining us, Joe. Tomorrow we'll be back, guys, with all the fun going into the we don't know. Are we doing a draft show? How are we doing this, Mike? We haven't even discussed it. So crazy.
We'll discuss it off air.
We'll discuss it off air. We'll definitely probably in all likelihood we'll be back tomorrow at 1. But and we'll see where we go from there as far as during the draft goes. We might do a little bit of the first round. We've done that in the past, so we'll see. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Enjoy the rest of the day. We have a lot going on. Keep your ears peeled.